I just think today's music is a melting pot of old music.
This is the history of Moondance, told across 7 iconic London venues. Moondance is one of London's longest running and most successful raves. Funky, Moondance's founder and promoter, has in fact promoted some of the scene's best known parties over the past 3 decades. From elevation and innovation through to Son of Dance and Jungle Mania, to name but a few. The Elevation and Moondance events have also seen now famous DJs getting their first sets. The likes of Andy C and Shimon, who now play all over the globe. In the late 80s, Funky used to help an old friend, Mike West, better known as the Rebel MC, put on his beat freak hip-hop parties. This led to him DJing on pirate radio stations like Laser FM during the late 80s and early 90s, when music was moving from soul to house. It was a chance meeting at Laser FM with Richie Malone of Expansions that saw Funky become the band's MC. He got to tour Europe and play at every iconic party of the time, the original Rain Dance, Eclipse and so on. This gave Funky a taste for the rave scene and he started to put on parties. Funky will now take you back to where it all began.
So we're coming up to the very first place we put on a rave, the Wonderland Arena, which used to be, let me drive around a bit, over there, but as usual it's now a block of flats. We used to walk round to here and cross through those hedges into the arena, which was over there somewhere.
The first big event Funky can recall promoting is Elevation Showtime, here at the Wonderland Arena in 1991. It was a disused warehouse, but it had a big stage and could hold around 2,000 people. In fact, Rat Pack helped to build that stage, and Everson fell off of it on the night of the first event. The flyers are probably collector's items, but would still include the likes of The Prodigy, Jumping Jack Frost, Paul Anderson, and Fabio and Groove Rider. Lineups in those days could be much more varied in musical style. When the council closed down the Wonderland Arena, we needed to find another venue as the Elevation parties had really taken off. Finbar and Lisa had taken over an old roller disco in Edmonton and were putting on successful pirate club nights. The venue was big, they had put in a good sound system, and we put on some of the best Elevation events of the early 90s. As you can see, it's now been levelled. Funky had always wanted to put on a party in town, and the London Astoria was becoming popular as a rave venue. On the 22nd of April 1995, the first ever Moondance event took place, right here. As you can see, the Astoria is no longer here and is sadly missed. 800 people turned up to that first Moondance event, but it felt like 2,000. The atmosphere was amazing, and it still feels the same after 25 years. On that night, MCMC created the famous way of saying Moondance whilst doing a moonwalk on the stage. In Funky's opinion, the Camden Palace was the best London venue during the 90s.
So we're heading towards the back of Camden Palace now. The queue was all the way down there for the first night, all the way to the front door here.
It was a bit rough around the edges at the time, but had state-of-the-art sound and lighting. The atmosphere at every event we held there was electric, which was why it was loved by both DJs and ravers. Funky could never get a booking at the Camden Palace, so it was thanks to Chris Paul from Orange that he was introduced to the manager, Lee. He gave Moondance a potentially duff second week in January date. Funky will never forget that first Moondance he did in January 1996. It was still a new event, so he was only expecting a few hundred people, but it was so busy he ended up turning away hundreds. DJs, including Rat Pack and Slipmat, brought the house down that night. We recently came across a review for that event on the Fantasia Rave Archive that tells you all you need to know. We have continued to put on events in what then became Coco, as our ravers consider this to be their spiritual home. From the mid to late 90s and into the noughties, we were rotating events between Camden and Bagley's. Moondance ravers really liked Bagley's because it had 3 arenas, so we started to host other promoters and had the opportunity to bring on up-and-coming DJs. It also had a huge outdoor chill-out space, so it felt like a festival in town, right down to the burger van. The events were getting bigger, and we wanted to keep going with the multiple music genres. Like so many brilliant venues, Bagley's eventually closed for Crossrail. So we found a new home under the arches at SE1. Moondance continued to flourish, and the New Year's Eve events were legendary. We were also delighted to be able to support fellow promoters like Definition and Essence of Chi. We couldn't get to all the venues today, but we also had some amazing nights at the Crystal Palace Sports Centre, Alexandra Palace, who can forget raving on the ice rink, Great Suffolk Street Warehouse, not to mention the festivals at the Olympic Park, Finsbury Park and Trent Park. We have had great parties all over London because we have the best ravers in the world.